Hey guys, welcome back to another episode where I talk about the SOULBLIGHT GRAVELORDS army for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Specifically, I want to do an update to a previous video I made, and this is going to be for 4th edition. I'm going to be covering the changes to SOULBLIGHT GRAVELORDS, what I think of them, and go over some army comps and lists. Okay, so first thing I'm going to start covering is, again, should you be playing SOULBLIGHT in 4th edition? The army hasn't changed too drastically, but 4th edition has brought about some changes that kind of change the way that you might remember doing certain things, or the way you might interact with some models, or the way that the army might play from 3rd edition. I think all armies play a little bit differently from 3rd edition. I'm certainly having some growing pains and not falling to the same sort of habits, but if you're new, or if you're asking yourself, okay, should I continue playing SOULBLIGHT in 4th edition? My take on it is that it's still a great control or MSU army, not as much as it was in 3rd edition and the MSU component. But it does still have great recursion and strong hero synergies. It does very well in almost any situation. So that's one of the, I think, strengths of SOULBLIGHT is that so far, whenever you play the army, it does have like this sort of diversity and allows for a lot of different playstyles, more or less, and a lot of great responses to different scenarios. You're not really locked in to doing the same thing over and over again. So it's very versatile, in my opinion. But it does have a lot of diversity when it comes to list building and playstyle. The list building for 4th edition, its mechanic isn't super great. I think it needs a little bit of tweak, but right off the bat, it's not terrible. And with the removal of the bloodline lock specific units, it does now open up the sort of a broader spectrum of more unit synergies that you can take in SOULBLIGHT. So some positives, and some of these are basically sticking around over from 3rd edition, but again, versatile and deep model range. You can't argue that SOULBLIGHT has some of the best looking models in the entire range, especially if you like undead and vampires and things like that. I think they're very unique and quite beautiful. Variety in list building, you are encouraged to try different things and build different things, even though some units are just inherently more effective per point cost to what they do. Strong recursion and objective control, so that's always been a very strong point for SOULBLIGHT. So SOULBLIGHT players love the recursion. People who don't play SOULBLIGHT hate it, and that's fair. It can get really annoying, but nonetheless, it's still very strong, even with the changes that kind of nerfed it a little bit. And then very strong hero and unit synergy. So again, your army is designed very much centered around your heroes, and they provide a lot of buffs to your units. So you're incentivized to keep everything in a nice sort of like package, if you will. Negatives. Same thing, more or less carrying over from 3rd edition. I don't consider SOULBLIGHT to be a beginner-friendly army. It is a little bit techy at times and does require a little bit of work to put into it and play through to really understand how to play. Still too many named heroes. I think that is just a downfall in a lot of armies in Sigmar, is that Games Workshop loves to put out all these named characters, but named characters inherently feel a little restrictive. So would really have loved to see generic vampire cavalry hero, or better hero, just in the regular vampire lord or whatever. It can be expensive, so still from a collecting standpoint, because you are putting a lot of models on the board, a lot of the models for SOULBLIGHT tend to cost a little more than other armies that don't require as many models. Still no power projection. What I mean by that is still no shooting. I think the idea of vampires with bows is too much to ask for, and I don't expect to ever get that. And with the nerf range on spells across the board for 4th edition, we see even less power projection besides manifestations and things like that. And then the army can be slow depending on how you build it. So depending on the units that you like the look of, or you like the aesthetic, or we want to go for, a lot of your models have base 4 or 5 inch movement, so not a whole lot of fast moving units to go there. That's not to say that they're all slow, but you can build a very slow, shambling horde of an army. That's thematic of the army itself. Okay, so starting off, I want to cover the battle traits. I'm not going to read these verbatim. I'm going to go ahead and provide you guys here with all the battle traits. You can pause and take a look at them and read them in depth for yourself, or download the PDF. Thanks to Games Workshop for putting that out. But I will just go over some notable changes from things from 3rd edition. So just recap here. First thing I want to talk about is the hunger. So in 4th edition, vampire units that use the fight ability are going to heal D3. They're going to heal 2d3 if they destroyed an enemy unit this turn using a fight ability. And again, they're going to do this at the end of any turn, so anytime that they use a fight ability. This is very different from 3rd edition, in which we're healing up to 6, right? Health or 6 damage, whatever you want to call it, but you could heal up to a max of 6 if you dealt up to 6 damage. It didn't matter if you destroyed the unit or not. So this is obviously a nerf. People felt that the healing for Soulblight was too ridiculous last edition, and I'll agree. Having your Ethereal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon on a permanent 3-up save and healing up to 6 wounds every time it fought made for a very difficult piece to lift. But there's something to keep in mind. Don't go charging headlong into your enemy lines thinking, oh, I'll just heal 6 like last time or whatever. Because that D3 can really hurt if you roll and you roll a 1 and you're not really getting that sustainability that you thought you were going to get. But the next one is the Unquiet Dead and Rising Dead. So I kind of grouped these together. This is basically your old grave sites. So big things to note is that grave sites don't exist anymore, and there is no more summonable keyword. So if you look on your war scrolls for your units, on your Deadwalkers and Death Rattle, on your Fellbats and things like that, they used to have the summonable keyword. They have done away with that. Now it's Death Rattle and Deadwalkers, and you're going to set these up in reserve during your deployment phase. But now if you want to deploy them, you're going to set up wholly within 6 inches of a terrain feature and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So effectively, the terrain on the board has become your new gravesite. Good and bad thing. The 6-inch deployment is a nerf if you think from the 12-inch bubble that you had from your gravesites in a way. So that's a little bit restrictive. You obviously have a little bit less flexibility because you got to choose the gravesites before, right? So you could really put them wherever you wanted, but now it's based on the terrain. Good news is that because you're not coming from terrain in the current battle pack, right, you could do certain battle tactics very easily and then plan ahead for that. So if you start setting up smaller units, it'll make it a little bit easier to set up within the terrain features. And if I'm not mistaken, you could also set up right from enemy terrain features as long as they don't have any heroes within that terrain feature or around it. So as long as you comply with the 9-inch rule. But if you have something like the Seraphon Pyramid and there's no Seraphon units around it, you could effectively use that to bring up your reserve units. So that's pretty cool. Death Invocation. So again, this is happening every hero phase. And you're going to pick a Soulblight Gravelords hero and then pick up to 3 Death Rattle or Deadwalkers unit wholly within 12 inches of that hero. And for each target, heal 3 or return slain models with a combined health of up to 3. So I'm not going to lie to you guys. I played my very first RTT of 4th edition was literally like the weekend where the rules dropped. And I played all 3 games, and I was only using this on my hero phase. So you could do it on both your hero phase and your opponent's hero phase. So you effectively can return up to 6 1-health models, right? So that's 6 skeletons, 6 zombies, 6 Graveguard every battle round. Something to note also is that before you used to pick any hero and then choose units around them. Now you specifically pick one hero and then you get to choose units wholly within 12 inches of that hero. So you have to, bless you, my love. You have to really make sure that you maintain that hero synergy with your units. I think this is a ongoing thing for 4th edition that GW is really incentivizing that your heroes play closely with your cavalry and your infantry and they move in these little blocks to keep providing these 12-inch bubbles and these buffs, but still very strong. And then finally, Endless Legions. This is your recursion. So if you guys played 3rd edition, recall this would happen at the end of the movement phase. And then you would roll a dice. And then on a 4-up on your opponent's phase, you got to return something. And on a 3-up on your phase, you got to return something. So now you don't have to roll. So that's a good thing. They removed the RNG component of it. And then instead replaced it with a command point. So now you pay 1 command point in order to return half of a slain unit. Still following similar rules. So if it's on your opponent's turn, the unit has to be set up wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Soulblight Gravelords hero, or wholly within 6 inches of a terrain feature, but they have to be outside of 9 of any enemy models. If it is on your movement phase, you can set up the replacement unit more than 3 inches from all enemy units instead of 9. But if you do set up within 9 inches of any enemy units, you're not allowed to use any charge abilities that turn. So Just something to keep in mind. What that means is obviously you can't charge, obviously you can't countercharge, anything like that. I personally like the change. I wasn't really too big on the RNG component of it. Yes, command points are highly valuable nowadays, but if you're playing Soulblight, you have to sort of plan ahead. Hey, I'm going to lose this unit this turn, or you might sack a unit of chaff or something like that, so that you can plan for the return, right? And that return makes it easier to score a battle tactic on your turn. So whether it be take their land or the one with the flanks, right? We have to have the short battlefield edge or something like that. And you're going to get that unit back. You don't have to guess on the RNG. All you have to do is hold on to that one command point. So I personally really like the change on that. Okay, next we want to talk about battle formations. So battle formations are replacing our bloodlines. So we no longer have the limitations of the bloodlines where you can really force or pigeonhole to take certain units in certain bloodlines because they don't get the battle traits. Now battle traits are for everybody. So these are our battle formations here. We have 4 of them. We have the Legion of Shaiish, the Bacchanal of Blood. I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I'm sorry. The Denstev's Drove, and the Death March. There is a clear winner here, and I'll give you guys my very clear opinion after playing in 2 RTTs and looking at competitive lists and things like that, what I think the clear winner is. And my opinion. You guys might have a different opinion, but this is what I think. So again, notable changes. No more bloodlines, right? So we're not locked into bloodlines to receive bonuses or traits. That's awesome. This actually adds more flexibility in list building. When we talk about the first one here, the Bacchanal of Blood, you get +1 to casting and then +1 to wound for your vampire units. So this is basically the Legion of Blood from last edition, right? In which any vampires that are outside of combat range or outside of 3 from enemy units get +1 to casting whenever they cast a spell, and they're going to add +1 to wound if they charge. So really good. Any bonuses to casting in the current situation that we have with manifestations and how ridiculously powerful manifestations are going to be amazing, especially because a lot of the spells now for the current edition seem to have been a little bit more difficult to cast. So bonuses are always welcome. The Death March, this one provides good synergy and buff to Death Rattle units. And then Black Knights and Graveguard are going to benefit from this a lot. So for this one, you get to add 1 to the rend characteristic of melee weapons by Death Rattle units that charge in the same turn and are attacking units that have fewer models than the attacking unit. When you first read it, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was victim to this when I first read this and I saw the changes to Black Knights. I was very excited. I was like, oh my gosh, +1 to rend. Black Knights are amazing now. This is going to be crazy. Having played with it a couple times, I like it less and less. And I'll tell you why. The reason being is because you are being made to jump through too many hoops for just an extra point of rend. First of all, you need to be able to charge. And with the current counter charge mechanic and some units being able to redeploy into combat and things like that, oftentimes your charge is not as reliable as you think it is. Secondly, you have to be attacking a unit that has less models than your unit that you're obviously attacking with. And that's not always a guarantee either, right? A lot of people, a lot of really good players screen off the units that you want to be charging into very well. Just block you in, so you can't really get that bonus. So you're going to have to charge into some type of infantry block or reinforced infantry block or something like that. So it doesn't always work out the way you want it to, and it actually gets weaker if you start losing models, right? So if they have any power projection, so any shooting or spells that they're casting and they're starting to reduce the number of models within your unit, right now it makes it even more difficult for you to get that bonus. So it's, to me, when I first read it, it seemed great. Having played with it a couple times, not such a huge fan of it anymore. The last one is Denstev's Drove. This one allows you to pick up to 3 friendly Deadwalker units in combat. So Deadwalkers are going to be things like your Direwolves and your Zombies. I believe Fellbats also have the Deadwalker keyword, if I'm not mistaken. And anyways, you're going to make a pile-in move, and then for any enemy unit in combat with the target, you're going to roll a d3, and on a 2+, you inflict an amount of mortal damage to that unit equal to the roll. This one's actually pretty good. You're going to get more movement, so it effectively allows you to potentially tag other units into combat and prevent them from moving or prevent them from charging or tie up your opponent even more in their backline if you are able to make it that far. So played correctly, it can really allow for a lot of like roadblocks and speed bumps for your opponent. Free little damage here and there, like chip damage, is great, especially if you're tagging any 5 or 6 wound heroes and you start rolling those mortals on them. So it's amazing. Again, even if you fail on the 2+, at least you're getting that free pylon. It's not something that you have to jump through many hoops to get. So looking at these... Oh, sorry, I didn't do the last one, and I'll go over the last one. This is the Legion of Shyish. It says you can pick one additional target using a Deathly Invocation ability. This one is so garbage, in my opinion, that I didn't even bother including it in the list of potential battle formations. Realistically, the ones you're going to see taken more often are going to be the... I can't even say this word. Bacchanal of Blood. I was going to call it the Blood one, and then probably Death's Strove. Maybe Death March, if they're running a ton of skeletons and they're not afraid that the extra hoops you have to jump through. In my opinion, again, having played 2 RTTs so far and the things that I played, I find that the Blood one probably to be the most valuable. Even if you're only running like 2 vampire heroes or 1 vampire hero, whatever it might be, for the most part, I would definitely take Death's Drove in list where I might be running a ton of direwolves. Direwolves are really good nowadays, so they might be really helpful there. And if I'm not looking to get any specific spells off, or if I'm not too concerned about my spell casting, right? The spell casting in that sense is just going to be a bonus, but just the ability to tie down of all these excess Deadwalker units is going to be better. So definitely my 2 winners are the Blood one and the Death's Drove. The other ones are meh. Alright, so let's look at our heroic traits and artifacts. And before I go through this list, I want to just say real quick that these are not the best. I've actually played certain lists recently, or I'm experimenting with certain lists where I don't even bring an unnamed hero and just forgo a heroic trait or artifact, and it hasn't really made that much of a difference. It's marginal at best, and you'll see why. So let's focus real quick. So here we have the heroic traits and artifacts of power. I'm going to go ahead and focus on the heroic traits first. So we have 3 of these. First one being Lash of the Sire. So you're going to roll a dice, and on a 2+, you get to move d6 inches. If you're in combat, you get to make a pile move instead. So out of turn movement is always good. So I will say this, anytime you get to move outside of the movement phase is a good thing. It is a movement-based game and an objective-based game at the end of the day. So fast units are generally going to be much better than slow units. So this is going to happen in your hero phase. So not terrible. The thing I don't like about this, again, is that I'm being made to jump through too many hoops, right? First of all, I have to have the hero be in combat range with the unit that I want to move. So I have to be within 3 inches. And I have to then roll a 2+. And you might say, well, you have a 1 in 6 chance of failing. Yeah, but when maybe you stake a battle tactic on it, or you do inevitably roll that 1, which we all know, you're going to roll that 1 at one point when you really need not to. It feels bad. And let's say you roll a 2+, and then you end up rolling a 1 on the d6, and it's, oh, I moved 1 inch. So it also feels bad. I think just having it happen, so you get to pick a unit within combat and then get to move d6 inches, seemed, in my opinion, perfectly fine. I don't think it's too crazy to ask for that. It's a gamble either way, but it is what it is. Unbending Will. So this one, you are basically going to add d6 to the control score for Deadwalker or Death Rattle unit. Controlling objectives is good. The problem is that it's limited to 1 unit of 2 or more models. So again, you have to be wholly within 12 inches. So whatever it is you're picking, you have to be very close and nearby for. And you only get to pick 1 unit. Doesn't seem great. I know control score bonuses tend to be good because the units that have negative control score impacts are very good. It just doesn't feel very great. Again, what if you only roll a 1 or something like that? And then Unhinged Rampager, you get to reroll charge. I can really only ever see this being used on a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon or a Vangorian Lord. I don't know. I don't think you're going to give this to your Necromancer or your Vampire Lord on foot or your White King on foot. I've yet to see any list running a mounted White King, but maybe him if you really, I don't know. Again, it just feels like this could have been something better. It missed the mark. If I were to rank these, this is how I would rank them. If I were to take them, I would just take Lash of the Sire. That's what you're going to see most often than not on any list. And then I've yet to see Unhinged Rampager or Unbending Will in any competitive list. Let's look at the Artifacts of Power. Again, lackluster. We have the Orb of Enchantment, so it's a once per game use. You are going to select an enemy hero in combat, and they're going to get fight last. Situational, very situational. Oftentimes, the only enemy heroes that you might actually see being thrust into combat are the big hammer pieces or centerpiece models. Maybe if you're trying to take them down and prevent them from doing something, it works out great, and you get that once per turn fight last. So I'm not saying it's bad. It's definitely the best one. Spoiler, it's definitely the best one out of the three of them. But for new players or people who don't really have in-depth game knowledge or game sense, it'll be really difficult to know when to use it or when to set up to be able to use it. So it's not forgiving, and I personally am not a huge fan of once per game artifacts. I enjoy having a recurring effect throughout the game. I just feel like it might add something more in the long run, but that's just me. The next one is Amulet of Screams. You roll a d3 and a 2+, inflict the number of mortals equal to the roll to enemy caster. It's a reaction. The hero face only get one use. Basically, they nerfed this from last edition. Enemy hero goes to cast a spell. If you're within range, 18 inches, by the way, so it's reduced range from what it used to be, I think. I think it used to be 24, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was 18. I don't remember, but it used to happen every time they cast a spell. They would take d3 mortals if the spell wasn't unbound or something. Now you have to, again, roll. And on a 2+, they take that many mortals. But you only get it one time. It feels bad. It's the only way I can say it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't look like a good artifact. And then Shard Knight, your ethereal to save for shooting attacks. So they completely took away the ethereal vampire lord zombie dragon. They said never again. It was awful. If you want it, you can have it for shooting and shooting only. Shooting has been toned down in 4th edition. I don't think it's as oppressive as it was in 3rd. I don't see myself ever taking this unless we run into an incredible heavy shooting meta all of a sudden and 80% of the armies are running shooting units. Overall, I guess if I had to rank them, Orb of Enchantment and Amulet of Screams are tied. So I'll say first or second place, whatever you want to give them. Shard of Night, just pretend it doesn't even exist. It's garbage. Again, I have built lists where I don't even take a hero that can have an artifact or a heroic trait or whatever because they just don't feel that impactful. I would rather have the benefit of having that hero and what they're bringing in their spell scroll or in their war scroll than whatever I can get from this. Okay, let's look at our gutted spell lore. Here's our spell lore. It feels bad. It looks bad. It is bad. Some people say it's not so bad. I disagree. I think it's not good. Let's talk about it. First of all, no more spell upcast, so no bonuses to unmodified casting rolls of 9 up. The good thing is that all wizards know these spells, but that's just a general change for 4th edition. I think that was a really good thing that they did, is that now they opened up and you don't have to pick a spell for your hero wizards. Now they just know it. All the spells in the lore, which is great. They should have just always done that. Let's talk about Vile Transference. This is our unlimited spell. This is the Horde Breaker spell. So again, this is the one, I think most armies have this type of spell somewhere in their lore. So you're going to roll a dice equal to the number of models in the target unit. And then for each 6, you inflict 1 mortal damage. And if any enemy models were slain, you heal D3. Okay. Range of 18 in the current meta is good, seeing as how most things had their range gutted. You're just hoping to roll those 6s. So it's okay. It's not the best. It definitely isn't what it used to be. You don't have that large health pool bust anymore. So if you're going up against a Gargan or something like that, Vile Transference used to be really good. Now it's whatever. It's whatever. That's what I'm going to say. It's a whatever spell. Prison of Grief provides fight last. You pick a unit within 12 inches and it gets fight last or strike last, whatever you want to call it. Strike last is very good, right? I don't want to say that it's bad. That debuff is very strong. The thing that makes this sort of a poo spell is, again, that 12-inch range. If you're putting yourself in a position where you're casting this, more likely than not, you're already somewhere, right, getting close to combat range with something that you might want to fight or you might not want to fight or you're scared of, and that's why you're putting strike last on it. Maybe they might have some type of countercharge play or counterplay. So I would have just liked to see the range at 18. I don't think it's asking a lot. But still, it's a whatever. Oop, messed up there. And then the last one is Waste Away. I'm really upset by this one. They massacred my boy. The range is 12 inches now. It's down from 18. And if you guys recall, Waste Away being the #1 spell last edition for us, it was amazing. You get -1 to wound and -1 to damage for the target unit, which was beautiful. Basically, we're just -1 to damage now. That's all. They have to be again within 12 inches, so you're getting real close with your spellcaster for this. And they're just -1 to damage feels... On a cast of a 7, it feels terrible. And that's another thing I want to point out, right? These aren't being cast on 6s. A lot of our spells last edition were being cast on 6s, which is great. Especially we had that +1 from Legion of Blood bonus, which is... We got used to a certain lifestyle. Now on a 7, the likelihood of rolling a 7 up from a 6 is statistically more difficult. So it feels bad. Like, more likely than not, you're going to fail a lot of your cast. And when you fail and it doesn't feel good to get a lackluster spell off, it just, I don't know. I feel like GW missed the mark with the spell lore. I think they got a little too heavy-handed on there with some of these changes. I would have been perfectly fine with keeping, in my opinion, you keep Waste Away the way that it was, so -1 to wound, -1 to damage, 18-inch range. You could have put the spell cast out in 8. I would have been totally fine with that. I'm like, okay, that's really powerful. 18 inches, -1 to wound, -1 to damage, but it's a cast of an 8. That would have been huge. And that I think that would have been a good compromise. You still get to keep a really powerful debuff spell. -1 to damage nowadays, it just feels like meh. So notable units and synergies. I'm trying to move this along quickly for you guys. I'm not going to go through every single scroll. I'm legit just going to go through the ones that you are going to see, at least at the start of the edition, at the making of this video. The units you're going to see the most of, and these are just units that probably got a glow up or they're just really synergizing really well. First one to start with is big man Nagash himself. So if you look here, Nagash did have a 20-point increase from 3rd edition to 4th edition. So he used to be 860 points. Now he's 880 points. He did retain his casting. So he's a ridiculous caster, +9, which is amazing in the current meta, especially with the manifestation rules. He can literally cast all the manifestations in a lore. So really strong. His War Scroll spell is ridiculous. I can't describe it any other way than that. It is just ridiculous. And I'll read it to you guys here in a second. Okay. He has an insane once per battle ability. Also ridiculous. And then he has amazing synergies with the following units. So Blood Knights, Direwolves, Graveguard, any MSU really. And then he synergizes super well with the Morbid Conjuration manifestation, which at the making of this video is the most broken thing in 4th edition. I don't think GW really thought about what they were doing with that one. It's insane. You'll see it in 90% of the lists. They all just take it because it's just money. It's absolutely crazy. I'm not going to go through his whole profile real quick. I just want to point out a couple things. Number 1, he has +2 to casting, right? Not unbinding, so just +2 to casting, which is super good, especially if he miscasts, right? All he does is he loses his bonus to casting. So he still will take the 3/3 damage, that's fine, but he's not gimped like last edition where he was done casting and it felt super bad if you miscast on your first or second roll of your 9 spells, and now the whole reason you brought Nagash is, mute. So that's great. Hand of Dust is no longer a spell, right? So now you pick a visible enemy hero in combat, so within 3 inches, and then you still go through the whole little gamble, right? You put your dice behind your back in one of your hands, and your opponent has to pick. And if they pick the wrong hand, boop, that hero or monster is dead. So that's great. Okay, so his once per battle ability, Supreme Lord of the Undead, this is where things get a little insane, okay? And I'll read it. Set up a replacement unit identical to the target wholly within 12 inches of this unit and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So you pick a unit that has been destroyed, and you basically just put it back on the table. You might be asking yourself, wait, what? How is this? So you bring back 20 Direwolves or whatever. Okay, yeah. You can bring back 10 Blood Knights. Blood Knights don't come back, so once they're dead. But if you take a block of 10 Blood Knights, that is 30 wounds. That is 460 points, I believe. Right? So almost a quarter of your army in points. You just yeet them at the enemy. Right? Do as much damage as you can. Just really throw them in there. They get wiped out, and Nagash goes, "That's cool. I'm bringing them back." So you just get to add a free 460 points back into your army. So when you look at Nagash list, you're going to see that 9 out of 10 Nagash lists, right, recommended by your local Soulblight player, is going to have 10 Blood Knights, because there's no reason not to have them in there. It is ridiculous. And then when we look at his spell scroll spell, again, cast on a 7, but with that +2 to casting, you basically just need 5 on the dice every time. Real easy to achieve. 18-inch range, and it's unlimited. So you get to cast this as many times as you want. You cast a spell. If you pick a enemy unit, they take D3 mortals. Okay? If you pick a friendly death unit, you get to apply one of the following. Return a number of slain models to the target unit with a combined health characteristic of up to 3. So you basically just refill your ranks if you need to. Or you can give the target a ward of 5 up until the start of your next turn. If you think about it, now you have 10 Blood Knights with a 5 up ward, charging, disrupting the enemy, potentially sticking around for a turn or two, really being a menace. They get destroyed, you bring them back, you recast it on them, and you send them off again. You can summon the Morbid Conjuration, the entire lore with Nagash, because it's +2 casting bonus, right? You can get the Purple Sun on a 6 on the dice, and then the other things on like a 5 on the dice, because they all cast, I think, on a 7 or 6s, so really easy to get. And then whatever spells you have left over, you just start bombarding units with D3 mortals. So pretty insane when you think of it that way. So I'm pretty happy with Nagash in the way that he is now. I think he's probably a lot of fun to play. I've yet to bring my Nagash to any events or games just because I'm still working out his base composition and he's not painted, but once I have it completely done, I'll definitely be running some games with him. Next, I want to bring up Neffy. Oh, Neffy, my favorite from 3rd edition. So Neffy's got expensive. She went from 410 to 460 in 4th edition, so up 50 points. She's still a +2 caster, which is great. She still has Dark Mist. It can no longer target monster units. So basically you just have to really use it like on your infantry or things like that, because you're not going to use it on a single vampire lord, right? So it's just relegated to infantry or cavalry units, which is fine. She still maintains her -1 to hit aura, although it's been reduced. So it used to be 12 inches, now it's only 6, so we cut that aura in half. But she did also retain her potential auto-slay enemy heroes, so if they take damage from her Akhmet Har, and then on a 5-up, they are automatically destroyed. Still really good, puts the fear of a lot of players to protect their heroes and realizing when they want to take a fight with Neffy or not. She has great synergies with Blood Knights, Graveguard, Death Rattle Skeletons, and Prince V. So Neffy and Prince V have been running a lot of lists together. They just seem to work out really well off each other. She also allows for an out-of-phase movement for your Death Rattle Infantry or Deadwalker Infantry, which is great. So they basically get to use their normal move, so it's a free 4-inch move in the deployment phase. So not even hero phase, it's just you set them up and then they get to move. This is different from the last edition. Remember, last edition you got to pick her and 3 other units and then redeploy them. So you got to see how your opponent was setting up and then reset up. So it allowed for a lot of mind games there, but it's still great. Again, I stand by anytime you're moving out of phase, it is really strong. Manny. So Manny has surprisingly gone down. He's gone down 10 points from 3rd to 4th edition. He's still a +2 caster. He has a powerful War Scroll spell, an ability combo. So his War Scroll spell, Wind of Death, still works the same way. You cast it, you pick a point, and then you select up to 3 units, visible 6 inches with. You pick up to 3 blah 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 blah. 18-inch range. You pick up to 3 visible enemy units within 6 inches of that point. So you're not selecting a unit, you're just picking a point on the board, right? And then you roll a d3, and on a 2+, right, they take a amount of mortal damage equal to the roll. Remember, you have to roll for each target, so you will roll separately for each unit you target. But if you manage to slay any models, right, for the rest of the turn, you get to add +1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Death Rattle and Deadwalker units, as long as they're wholly within 12 inches of Manny. This is really good with Black Knights. You put Manny and some Black Knights together, you cast Wind of Death from a distance, you kill a 1 wound or 2 wound model, right? And now those Black Knights are going from 2 attacks to 3 attacks apiece, as long as they stay within 12 inches of Manny. Right? You're going to want to charge in Manny with the Black Knights because if you look at the once per turn combat phase ability on his War Scroll, if this unit charges turn, roll a dice, and a 3+, this unit has strike first. So you'll strike first with Manny, then you strike first with the Black Knights, and then chances are that whatever is you're attacking into, you're either going to wipe out or they're going to be severely hindered with all the amount of wounds you're going to put on them. One of the things that's making Manny really popular nowadays is going to be his reaction, the Mortarch of Night ability. So when he issues a redeploy command to a unit wholly within 12 inches of him, they can redeploy into combat. That is really strong, especially if you're using it with a pack of wolves or something that you're trying to tie up with the enemy, or if you're trying to prevent a counter charge right into you or counter charge into your Black Knights. So it's been really strong. It has a lot of play. It's got a lot of flexibility. I foresee maybe a nerf in the future if it keeps going this strong. Maybe not to the ability, but maybe to Manny's points, because right now he's really popular. At 410, my guy's a steal. So really good. Prince V has been making a good appearance in lists with Neferata. So he has gone up in points. He's 40 points stronger, 40 points more expensive. He can still hit like a truck. Sometimes it depends really on how the dice rolls go. His spell scroll spell is still really powerful. Again, still cast on a 7, but it gives you strike first, which is fantastic. And then he does have his Saint of Slaughter ability, which synergizes really well with Blood Knights. So if your Blood Knights are able to destroy a unit, you basically get to give them their bonus effects, like their power of effects. So you get to add +2 to their move characteristic, or add +1 to the attack characteristics, or add +1 to the damage. And then these are abilities that can stack, right? So if you end up killing 2 units, you can have 2 of the bonuses. And if you kill 3 units, you can have all 3 bonuses. You'll see later in the list that I provide where you'll see the synergy between Prince V, the Blood Knights, and Nephi come into play. And again, you can see that happening already. Bella has also become popular. She's 10 points more expensive, so not too much. She's a +2 caster. I hope you guys are noticing the trend in how efficient and popular +2 casters are, and that's like an overarching theme. So if you have any heroes that are +2 casters, they're going to be really powerful this edition. And again, this has to deal with the manifestation changes, so it's free spells that act as units, right? And then just overall, just an overarching thing that's happening now in the current meta. She has a powerful War Scroll spell, and it synergizes super well with Direwolves. So for Direwolves, it's going to buff them in that they're going to get +1 to the rend. But the biggest thing is going to have them ignore the effect of the Beast ability. So the units that are tagged as Beast can only count as 1, no matter how many models are on the objective. They only have a control score of 1. But with Bella ability, you can pick up to 3 visible friendly Direwolves wholly within 18 inches, right? And they can basically ignore that ability. And given their large base size, right, they're going to take up a lot of board space, so they're going to sit on that objective, and now you can have a stronger time contesting that objective. Great thing is, as long as she stays within combat range of those wolves, she's going to have a 4-up ward, which is really strong. And then if you bring her along with any Radikar the Wolf, or Radikar the Beast, or Ivia Volga, or Lady Annika, Kritza, basically all these guys from like the Cursed City thing, right, she's going to add 3 to their control score as well. Oftentimes, you're not really bringing Bella with Radikar. I have seen it here or there, but you're mostly bringing her along with Torgillus and Direwolves, and we'll see why in a second. I do want to just mention real quick Radikar the Beast, because I love this model, and I think maybe he might have some play in some lists, and I would like to see more of him, just because I think he's just fun. He's a fun guy to look at, and sometimes he's thematically just interesting in a way. Don't love the points increase, so he went up a good amount, so he was 280 and he's up to 350. That's a typo on my end when I wrote great in current manifestation, heavy meta. But he is a wizard now, so I guess that's good. Plus, any casting is good. He does have a decent War Scroll spell. I would have loved, it would have been a great or fantastic War Scroll spell if it lasted until the end of your next turn. But basically, it's -1 to hit and wound for anything that targets Radikar, but it's only for the rest of this turn. Right, so for the rest of your current turn. When it goes to your opponent, that kind of goes away. This used to be a passive on his scroll, so that's a huge nerf for him. He does get free movement, so every time he's not in combat, he gets to move d6 inches, and he can't move into combat, so he can avoid like counter charge and things like that, which is great. You want him to charge though, because if he charges, he gets to add +1 to wound, for combat attacks made by friendly Death Rattle, Deadwalkers, and Vehicles Bloodborne units that are wholly within 12. So again, he'll synergize really well with Black Knights and Direwolves because they can move along in one block. And then when he charges, he hands out that buff to them. And I'll say he synergizes with Bella just because you can give him that +3 to control score. And then if you're bringing Bella, you're bringing Direwolves, and then you bring Radukar along in that little pack of the 3 units, and they move together and they can really sort of disrupt it and do some work together. He's not my first choice. I just put him on here as a fun choice, and I have used him in like casual game here and there, and he's fun to play with. But if I was going really competitive, I'd probably just leave him at home. Now this guy, I expect him to get a nerf. Torgillus had a massive glow up. This guy went to the gym and he pumped some iron because he's crazy right now. Points stayed the same, so still 180 from last edition. His War Scroll spell is really good. It is 18 inches and it's -1 to wound. Wound bonuses are really hard to come by since they did away with Finest Hour from 3rd edition. So any bonuses to wound is really strong, and any negative modifiers to wound is even stronger. So really good. The thing that sets Torgillus apart from anything else is his ridiculous passive ability. So it says this unit can use the Deathly Invocation ability even if a different friendly unit has already used it this turn. So effectively, you can have another hero select up to 3 units within 12 inches to heal 3 or return up to 3 models with a combined health characteristic of up to 3. And then Torgillus can be like, that sounds cool, I'm going to do that again. So then he gets to double down on that. So if you think about it, you're basically bringing back 6 Graveguard every hero phase. The amount of recursion that you can get from this guy. He also has a pretty good shooting attack, which is silly. 18-inch range, really good range. Can shoot in combat also, which is dumb, but okay. You get 2d6 shots, force to hit, force to wound, run 1, but d3 damage. So yeah, I think Torgillus, when you combo him with Bella, you put Torgillus, Bella, some Direwolves, or like Torgillus and Necromancer, and like a block of Graveguard, it's just really good. It's just really good. Next, we have the Necromancer. He's up 40 points. He has a good War Scroll ability, so it's the Van Hells. Basically, in a 3-up, the target can fight twice, but he has fight last in the second fight. He still has a ward if he stays within combat range of any Death Rattle or Deadwalker unit, which is really good. He's just a cheap infantry like hero wizard. He has really good synergy. I think the best synergy he has is with Graveguard. So if I'm bringing my Necromancer, I'm putting him, Torgillus, and a reinforced unit of Graveguard in a little block, and then moving those guys, and that's a little castle unit that I'm moving. I have previously run 2 reinforced units of Graveguards, and then Torgillus and a Necromancer, and then move those guys as a castle. That's been really difficult for my opponents to lift because just the recursion between Torgillus' ability and then being able to debuff my opponents with -1 to wound, potentially give them fight last, or give the Graveguard fight twice. This is really strong. So just like a cheap caster, basically. Graveguard, not quite the glass cannon that they used to be. They did go down 10 points, which is good. I like seeing cheaper units, but they did lose 1 point of damage, so now they're no longer damage 2, they're damage 1. But I think they're working as great anvils that deal fair damage. So as before, they were glass cannon unit, right? So they hit hard, die hard. Now they're sticking around longer. They're dealing a little bit more consistent damage, and I think they're great. I currently like where they're at. So 2 attacks apiece, 3s, run 1 damage, but they're crit mortals on their hits. They are providing a 5-up ward to any infantry heroes. So mentioning the previous Necromancer and Torgillus, those guys will be on a 5-up ward, and then your Graveguard are also on a 5-up ward. So if you start to see what's building here, right, with a little block, you have reinforced unit of Graveguard with Torgillus and Necromancer. You're returning 6 models every hero phase. They're on a 5-up ward. They potentially fight last with crit mortals. It's going to be difficult for your opponent to deal with. Okay? So that's a synergy we're looking for there. Black Knights, massive glow up. These guys went from 0 to hero in my book. 160 points, right? Very efficient for what they do at those points. They gained 1 health, so they went from 2 health to 3, so same health as a Blood Knight now. They get 2 attacks apiece, force to hit, 3 to wound, run 1 damage, 2 damage on the charge. The best thing here you're looking for is if you're looking, oh man, 4s to hit, they get crit mortals for the charges on their lance. If you have a block of 10, you're going to roll 21 attacks, right? Assuming they're all in range and you have your champion. And then 6s do mortals. Just really good. If you have them with Manny, right? Now they get 3 attacks apiece. 6s doing mortals on the charge. So I think points cost, the wound upgrade was huge. I think these guys are just absolute money. Like I would run 10. I run a game where I had two reinforced units, so I had 20 Black Knights on the board. And remember, you kill them, okay, I bring 5 back. And now they just do the same thing. Just charge them into you and just keep going. Really good. Blood Knights, not quite what I've liked to see, the changes on Blood Knights. They went up in points, so they went up 20 points, so they're 230 now. I'm still not sure how to feel about them. I played them once with Neffy, just kind of running back at the beginning of 3rd edition list with Neffy and Blood Knights. Putting Dark Mist on them to make them ethereal and a 3-up. I will say this. They're durable, right? Having 30 wounds on an ethereal 3-up, very good. Having 30 wounds on a 3-up, very good. The anti-infantry +1 rend and the charge +1 damage are good. I don't think that they're fulfilling the role that I would like for them. I would like for them to be absolute hammer units. Give them 2 damage flat. Give them rend 2 flat or something like that, and maybe it's just a +1 damage on the charge, but just something that makes them hit really hard. I wouldn't mind paying 260 or whatever for a block of 5 if they were hitting like trucks. And that's really what I would like out of Blood Knights. They're like elite vampire cavalry, right? They should cost elite vampire cavalry points and they should hit like one. Now it just feels like they're a somewhat expensive anvil. They're going to stick around for a while and they're going to chip down on the thing that they're fighting. But unless they're charging into infantry, like, I don't really see it. So there's very select lists where I would bring Blood Knights. And it makes me feel sad that I can't bring them more often because I love the models. They look great. But if I had to choose between a block of Blood Knights and a block of Black Knights right now, I would go Black Knights 9 out of 10 times. Direwolves also had a good change. They went down 10 points. Cheaper is always better. One of the best things that we got now in 4th edition is they can run and charge. They're very good. Running and charge is ridiculous. Just ask Nighthaunt because they can run, charge, retreat, do whatever they want for free. They're crazy. And they're just synergizing really well with a lot of units. I really like their synergy with Bella, like I mentioned earlier. I'll get rid of that beast effect so they can have a little bit of an easier time contesting objectives. But they move fast. They don't hit super hard. And that's okay. That's not their role. Their role is to take up space, interrupt the enemies, just be a menace, like moving around the board. But I think they're in a good spot from when they were last edition. Okay, and then to wrap it up, I'll run through this real quickly because we're reaching a lot of 50 minutes here or something like that. But I want to run some sample lists by you guys real quick. So there's only 3 lists. Again, I'm not telling you that these are the most competitive lists and that you're going to win your RTT or GT by playing these things. This is just lists similar to things that I've run or lists that I've seen other people in the competitive space or prevalent list in the SOULBLIGHT community being run. One that I want to cover here is the Nagash 1-drop list. I have seen variations or alterations of this list. Sometimes it's a 1-drop, sometimes it's a 2-drop, but this is a 1-drop variation that I've seen around and that I've looked at. So you have Nagash, you have 10 Blood Knights, 10 Direwolves, and 20 Graveguard. You're going to put these guys in the Death Stench Drove because you have 20 Direwolves, might as well have them get the extra pile in and chip damage. Lore of the Undeath is your only Undeath. And then Morbid Conjuration, the best Conjuration for manifestations, right? The idea here is very simple, right? You're going to have Direwolves running around the board, claiming objectives, tagging, or claiming battle tactics, tagging objectives, just being a menace. 20 Graveguard to help screen Nagash or protect backlines and things like that. And then your 10 Blood Knights, you're just going to yeet them at the enemy. Throw them in there, have them do what they're going to do. They get wiped out. That's fantastic. Nagash brings them right back. So remember, the whole point is that you're getting those free 160 points because of Nagash's ability, which is really strong. Meanwhile, Nagash is sitting there just casting all the Morbid Conjuration spells, bringing up the Shackles, bringing up the Purple Sun, bringing up the Grave Tide, bringing up the Maelstrom, charging up the Maelstrom because he has the cast to do it, detonating the Maelstrom, and just being an absolute menace. You don't have to fight Nagash, right? You don't have to throw him in there. You can really pick the moment where you decide, okay, I'm going to throw him in there and pick off like a hero, or, fight down and making sure that whatever I'm hitting is going to die, so he's not in any danger of being wiped out. Just keep in mind, this list basically falls apart the moment Nagash is destroyed. So if you go up against an opponent and they have a ton of shooting and they pick off Nagash, you're basically dead in the water. It's over. But if you're able to play correctly and you get decent matchups where they don't have a lot of power projection, it can be a really fun list to play. And I definitely plan on running something like this, or even this exact same list, the moment I get my Nagash completed. The Nephi and Prince V list variations that are running around, it's a 3-drop list. Sometimes I see it as a 2-drop list, depending if you want to put something else in Neferata's regiment. But the basic idea is you take Nephi and 10 Blood Knights. You're going to buff the Blood Knights with Dark Mist so they become ethereal. And then you're going to run Prince V, 10 Direwolves, 10 Direwolves, and then a Vampire Lord. The Vampire Lord's going to have Lash of the Sire and then Orb of Enchantment. Again, the Lash, you can use it on Prince V or Nephi or whoever it is you're trying to get that extra movement at the beginning of the hero phase. You're going to run the... so you're going to use the Orb to pick good fights when it comes to enemy heroes, right? So you're trying to wipe down a key unit. And then the Blood formation, so you can get +1 to casting for Nephi and Prince V, and then +1 to wound on the charge. So basically all your key units benefit from this, the Lore of Undeath, and then the Morbid Conjuration. Some people might question, what's the Vampire Lord doing there? He's there as a support piece with his teleport ability, right? He can help you secure some objectives, like the one where you have to put units on the short battlefield edges. Maybe you want to claim a vacated back objective. Maybe you want to do the, what is it called, desecrate their lands by having him teleport around. So he's just there as pretty much a support piece. You can teleport him and then cast a conjuration in their back line and try to pincer them in or something. You could easily replace him with something else if you wanted to, but I just think he offers a decent tech piece. And then finally, the last list that we have going on here is going to be Manny and Bella. So the Manny and Bella list, this is pretty much the same list that you might have seen Tom Guan running, and he did really well on one of his first GTs of 4th edition. So it runs Manny, 10 Black Knights, 20 Graveguard, so reinforcing your Graveguard. Bella, Torgillus, 10 Direwolves, 10 Direwolves, a Necromancer with the Orb of Enchantment and Lash of the Sire, and another 10 Direwolves. And you're running this in Depth Stench Drove. It's a lot of Direwolves, so you really want to maximize that pile in and potential mortal wound damage, right? The Lore of Undeath and the Morbid Conjuration. This list works really well. It's got a lot of great synergies. I've mentioned Bella with Torgillus and the Necromancer. You have Manny with the Black Knights, which is huge. Okay, so it has a lot of flexibility. I would say with this list, there's a lot more tech, and you definitely have to know which fights to pick and when to pick a fight. And it's not a list that I would say, I haven't seen Tom play it, but looking at it and my playstyle is I wouldn't be too eager to just pick unnecessary fights. I would play a lot more of a control game, really capitalize on Bella and Torgillus, and then making sure that I'm using Manny and the Black Knights to pick out certain units, right? Because they're going to be my biggest damage dealers. Maybe I'll combo my Graveguard with the Necro somewhere, and then have them be a menace, right, with the fight twice. But it's a very strong list. I think it has a lot of play. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the list, you guys, and for this video as a whole. I hope that I didn't ramble on for too long or spoke too quickly and some of this made sense. Let me know what you guys thought of the video. Comments are always welcome. Any suggestions, improvements, things like that. I love critique. It's always good. Even bad comments are good comments in my opinion, because you're interacting, and I love interaction. So let me know what you guys thought. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subbed to the channel and you want to sub, please go ahead and sub. Would love to have you. Okay, so again, I just want to thank you guys for sticking around, and like, subscribe, do all the fun things that YouTuber people like to do. I always say that I'm going to try to be more consistent with my uploads, and I'll do my best, but my 9 to 5 and things like that kind of get in the way sometimes. But yeah. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.